I get to use just one Type-C to Type-C cable and it works just fine. This is a laminated screen, so there's virtually no parallax between where you touch the glass and where the pixels are. Hi guys, my name is Borodante, and today I want to make this very personal and practical review of a drawing display I have right here, which is a Huion Camvas Pro 13 Gen 2, also known as 2.5K. And 2.5K stands for the resolution. This is actually a 13.3-inch display with the tall QHD resolution, so it's 2560 by 1600. So it's a bit of a taller display than the average 16 by 9 display, and I'm especially happy to have this device right now because it's literally one-to-one pixel with my laptop's display. And yeah, to those of you guys who don't know, a drawing display, it's not a separate computer, it doesn't run like Android on it or anything like this. This is a monitor that you connect with a cable to your computer, and yeah, you use it as a second display or as a mirroring display, and it has a battery-free pan that is pressure and tilt sensitive, so you can go ahead and open your drawing app or sculpting app or texturing app, whatever you're into, and yeah, you can go ahead and draw away using all these features. Now, Huion recently contacted me and asked if I wanted to do a review of one of their tablets, and I looked through their recent lineup. I immediately noticed this device and I was like, this one, give me this one. This one seems like I'm really going to be using it. So yeah, what you guys have to know is that this device was sent to me for free by Huion, but I'm sharing my honest opinion and no one else is watching this video before you guys see it, so there's that. And also, I think a very important factor is that I chose this device myself because I actually want to just use it myself. And I'm really happy about my choice because it turned out to be a great device. So let me tell you guys a bit more about it. Let's start with the main body, the screen and everything. So as I said, QHD resolution, 13.3-inch display, which means the pixel density is somewhat close to the iPad Pro pixel density, so it's pretty close. It's not quite there, but it's quite high. I don't know, there's many different opinions about what pixel density you should really go for in terms of, this is like one of the smaller sizes, so maybe full HD would be more reasonable, like cheaper and everything. It would, but honestly, coming from iPad, this is like not at all overly sharp, or like there's like extra resolution that I'm not seeing. It's definitely like a perfectly crisp, bright, and very vibrant display. I really like the colors on it. On the side here, we have 7 programmable buttons. I quite like this design that it doesn't go with some, you know, dials or rings or touch stuff. It's just simple 7 buttons, and I'm not the guy to use side buttons a lot, so I don't usually use it during the process. I always prefer to use an actual keyboard, especially if you work in 3D, it's quite a good idea. But what I found really cool about these buttons is that you can program them for like controlling multimedia. For instance, you can play pause a player, you can have a button to switch between the displays, so I can input on this display, or I can switch over there and now my cursor is working there, which is, if you guys have been following me on this channel for some time, you may have seen that video where I criticize drawing displays, and I'll explain the reason why I'm really excited to have this right now. But like, the main point of the whole thing is that you can actually have anything you want on this screen, but you can actually have Photoshop on this screen and draw here, while on the actual drawing display you will have references or a YouTube video or a music player or whatever you want. So you can kind of have a screenless drawing tablet experience while also having a second display at the bottom. But this is like a bit of a perverted thing that I do. I don't think a lot of people will appreciate it much. But one thing I need to mention, and generally I chose this particular size, there's also a 16-inch size that looks the same way but is just a bit bigger. It actually has the size of the display that is, I believe it would be identical to the size of my laptop's display. So that size right there, comparing to this, like this is where the size ends here, and 16-inch would be that much bigger. I decided to go with the 13-inch because this way it just well, fits very nicely with just the laptop size, because the body of the tablet is noticeably bigger than just the screen, because you need those bezels to rest your hand somewhere, plus the side buttons and everything. But yeah, we'll cover some drawing performance a bit later. First, let's go through the rest of the hardware questions. Like, I just want to stop for a second and let you guys appreciate this setup right now. I am so happy about this, because this is like this high pixel density display with a nice, pretty slim body. Like, it's not aggressively slim, it's 1 centimeter thick, not too light either. I think it's literally 1 kilogram. What it means, it weighs exactly what it looks like, I would say. That would be a good way to put it. But I think that's because this Pro lineup of tablets has a non-compromise experience in terms of actual drawing. I'll cover the pen later, but overall, we have tilt support even at the bottom edge, and I mean completely the bottom edge of the display. It works just fine, which was a problem in previous generations of other brands and everything. So yeah, there's a certain tech packed into this. This is actually a QLED tech in this display, so we have this on-screen interface going on right here. I think we can only probably see it through the camera, so maybe I can zoom in it a little bit like this. We have several settings. So first of all, we have a couple of presets. Also, that's what it looks like without the yellow screen and windows. And yeah, in the user mode, you can control this brightness, and it goes all the way up to this brightness, which is fairly bright. Like right now, I'm in the studio lighting environment, and this is fairly bright. Like, I really can easily go back to 50 and it looks just fine. Then we have some color temperature settings, like just use it at all 50. I think this is the proper brightness and you should never do anything else. I think by default it's on a different setting, which makes it a lot darker. Then there's like color spaces in here. So this is sRGB, which I'm not sure, maybe it feels kind of like it's aggressively toning down the saturation of things, but maybe that's actually what it should be. There's also Adobe RGB that looks a bit more saturated, but also kind of dim. Yeah, you can make it brighter, but overall that preset is darkening down the colors a little bit. And yeah, by the way, another thing to appreciate here, this is the first drawing display that I see where this on-screen interface, you can actually navigate it using the pen, not like some kind of buttons on the side or something like this. You can actually use it normally. So yeah, back to native, back to just user 50-50-50 RGB colors, and in here 50-50-50 on all the color presets. Looks just right. I don't think we need to mess with these settings too much, except for maybe increasing this first slider of the brightness if we are in a very bright environment. In the end here, we have a few settings for like screen proportions or which mode we're using, HDMI or Type-C. And this leads us to the next and very exciting aspect of this device to me, which is right here. You can see there is nothing else connected to this tablet except for this one Type-C to Type-C cable. And this is just beautiful. Now, you need to have a modern Type-C port on your device. Most likely it will be like a modern laptop that would support that. On Huion website, it states that it needs a USB 3.1 Gen 1 Type-C port that supports DisplayPort connectivity, so it's sending an actual video signal through this cable. And that's a very important part. Like, it needs to be like a video Type-C port. Not all of them support that, not at all, so keep that in mind. And yeah, that it also needs to supply enough power for the device. Apparently, there are cases where a video supporting Type-C cable like this wouldn't actually supply enough power. Apparently that happens. That's why there's actually another Type-C port right below this main one, and its sole purpose is to provide power supply. So if there's not enough power coming from this main Type-C cable, you use another Type-C cable to plug the tablet either into a wall or to maybe charge it from the laptop as well. But yeah, in my case, I get to use just one Type-C to Type-C cable and it works just fine. fine. Now, what you're seeing right here is a very short cable. It's like maybe less than 50 centimeters long. This is not the Huion cable. This is just what I used because I actually appreciate having an even shorter cable. Because the funny thing about drawing displays is that like more than 50% of the time you won't be actually drawing on it. It will be just a display that's there on your table. So it's a second display kind of most of the time. So yeah, when I stop working with this, I put it right here where my iPad used to be, and now it's just this second display like this, and this minimal length of the cable, you know, giving the least amount of trouble with its length. Maybe eventually I'll find something even shorter, but so far as I think is pretty good. Now let's cover some other stuff. So there's a lot of things that come in the box, and generally I gotta say the unboxing experience, it felt very nice. Kind of a little bit premium. Nothing like crazy. Overall it's like plastic and paper, but everything is nice and black. I feel like it would work really well as a present. It felt like it was made to be a really good present because the unboxing was quite nice. And yeah, we have quite a few of things in the box, and actually I'll start with the cables since we've just been talking about it. So in the box you get a Type-C to Type-C cable that works for my setup, but it's 1 meter long. 1 meter is a comfortable length if you use it with a laptop, and I think this size of the tablet and its form factor and the clean setup of it, it's perfect specifically with a laptop. But you can of course have a very clean desktop experience with like a 16-inch version connected to a tower somewhere below your table. And actually when you purchase a drawing display from the Huion website, you can actually select some accessories to buy with it, and among many things it has a version of this Type-C cable that is 2 meters long. So, and by the way, many people get upset about longer cables not being included with devices, but what many people don't realize, I think, is that cables are actually expensive. They make devices expensive if you put in a lot of cables. And especially if it's like a Type-C cable that provides a lot of power with like recent gen support and everything, as well as like the video signal, that's an expensive cable. So if you buy a longer cable, it will make quite some price. But yeah, now what if you don't have a Type-C modern laptop or a motherboard that would have that kind of port? Then we go the older route where we connect this kind of beautiful thing that plugs into both of its ports, and on the other side of this cable we have 3 ports, so it's like 3-in-2 cable. So we have HDMI because that's how you send a video signal, and then we have a data cable like this, the USB cable, and then another USB cable that plugs into the wall. So power supply, a video signal, and the actual data transfer to not just make it work as a display, but actually as a drawing tablet. But I remember there was a possibility to connect this kind of tablets using only one of the USBs and HDMI. So the third cable is not always necessary. I'll test this one later and let you guys know if it can work with only HDMI and one USB connection. Yep, totally works with this cable right here connected this way, and then going to the HDMI port and one USB Type A cable with this power cable not being used at all. Not the cleanest setup, but at least you really don't need it. And the screen is as bright as it was before, so that's pretty good. There's full support using just one Type A port, of course if it supplies enough power. It's all about what type of USB ports you have on your device. And yeah, with this 3-in-2 cable, there also comes a USB extension, so you can have the power supply cable longer. And also we have this Type A to Type-C cable, which also can work with this extender here. And this is for those situations where you actually use the Type-C cable for your video signal, but you need extra power supply. So this goes into this another Type-C port, and then it plugs into the wall and it can be extended as well. So yeah, aside from cables, we have a nice pretty big cloth like this with Huion branding and everything. Very useful for cleaning your display, because this is a display that you put your hand on. Now we'll talk about the pen in a moment, but before I put the tablet back onto its stand, let's talk about the stand. So this is another thing that supports a very compact setup, so it can fold into this thin little thing. So the whole mechanism that lifts up This is whole metal and silicon patches, so it also extends like this nicely. Honestly, a pretty cool, well-designed stock stand. It doesn't support too much angles or anything, so we can go like this with a little bit like going even lower if we want to with this first hinge here, or the second hinge can get us up to like this lift. So this is a pretty decent stand with two pretty popular angles, I guess. But as I mentioned in my Your Drawing Sucks video, I was talking about stands like this one. You can see right here, you can buy this kind of stuff on Amazon. There's plenty of different options and they don't cost too much. But the point is, this is a structure that lets you tilt something at this angle, but also lift it up from the surface of the table, so you get to use your tablet, lift it higher, so you don't have to like tilt your head downwards too much. And that's a pretty cool thing, so I generally recommend getting something like that if you draw a lot and you actually like looking at the pixels that you draw on. But yeah, overall, like very nicely built, great metal and silicon everywhere, feels awesome. The bottom layer right here is like very thin and big surface plastic, so this is one thing that might crack eventually, to be honest. I don't feel super confident about it, especially considering it's like a mobile thing. I feel like this is something that I could break accidentally with time. Oh yeah, and another criticism, well, artists always have a lot of criticism about the stands, I feel. Another thing is that I really like using a keyboard with my drawing tablet, and since I have this huge bazooka keyboard, it's very long and kind of heavy, I kind of needed to put it inside most of the time with like only left side of it protruding like this from under the stand. And since this stand is covering the whole surface underneath it on the table with like this plastic layer, you can't really have a keyboard here. It's not gonna work very well. So yeah, for the rest of the video and for the rest of my personal use of this device, I'll switch to this little plasticky stand from a different brand that works simply like this. It doesn't have anything else on it, so not a lot of angles supported, but it does the job in terms of propping it up a little bit, letting me put the keyboard underneath like this. And as I said, I don't usually look at the drawing display when I draw on it, so it's not a big issue. It's just a good angle for the arm movement when I draw. Yeah, I really like the fact that I can easily slide in my keyboard. This is a very nice setup. Now, the pen. I love this pen. I used to be using another Huion tablet, just a drawing tablet without a screen, so that's what I've been using for the last month. And that tablet had a very different pen. I think it was probably because it wasn't a Pro series. This is a Camvas Pro right here. And that one was more like a mid-tier drawing tablet. It had a good design and a tilt support and everything, but the pen, this one is noticeably better. It has two side buttons, and I just want you guys to appreciate the design of it. It's very clean and very Wacom-like. Like, it looks very close to a Wacom pen, especially if we look at like this main rubberized area. It's very similar. It has this very clean design around the tip, and the differences really come on this other side where we don't have an eraser button that I've never used in my life ever, so I don't miss that. And I feel like it's a bit longer than an average Wacom pen, so that makes it, I don't know, a bit more comfortable to me. But yeah, in terms of actual performance, what I really like about this pen is that there's no perceivable travel of the pen at all as you apply pressure to it. So the experience is really just like a Wacom pen, and this is like, I think, the first time I really have a pen from like Wacom competitor tablets, when the pen nib really feels like it can easily rival a Wacom pen. With a full tilt support, good pressure support, as well as like this very small travel. All of this feels very high quality and high precision, so that's really cool. And yeah, you guys may have noticed I'm using like this light tip. This is not a standard tip, and another accessory that comes in the box is this nice donut-shaped stand for the pen that works very nicely. Everything doesn't go anywhere. And yeah, there's another option to keep the pen like this, which is always present on these stands, and I never got to use it in my life once. doesn't feel stable enough, I guess. Yeah, then the stand also opens up, and inside we have 10 more nibs. 5 of them are hard plastic nibs, the black ones, and the light ones are these felt nibs. So they provide a little bit of a dry marker experience, I guess, but I guess that sounds a bit unpleasant. In reality, it's actually very nice and fine. It kind of gives this F sound when you draw with that a little bit, but generally the sliding on the screen is nice and soft. It's not like grabbing onto the nib a lot with both types of nibs. And yeah, by the way, a few important things about the screen. This is a laminated screen, so there's virtually no parallax between where you touch the glass and where the pixels are. The glass and the pixels are glued together, literally. There's no air in between them. So that's a very nice thing to have. It gives very good visuals and good experience when you're drawing. And also, this glass has anti-glare etching. So it has this fuzzy, rough surface to it, which gives a very nice drawing experience. It's nice and soft with the predictable, soft, subtle friction that lets you really slide the nib on the surface very nicely. With a little bit of that friction, it doesn't get stuck anywhere and it doesn't just glide like plastic on glass or something like that. So it's a very nice experience. It's definitely a way to go, and pretty much I think like the best tech out there right now works this way. You have a laminated display that has this etched glass on it, but you do have to keep in mind that this etching on the glass gives a little bit of a rainbowy noise effect, sub-pixel scale, so it doesn't really make anything looking fuzzy or anything. Everything's very sharp on the screen. But when you look at like flat colors and you would move your head a little bit to look at it at different angles, you will notice a little bit of a rainbowy noise that's very tiny. Like you need to be pretty close to the screen to really see it, but it's there, and that's something like you either have to deal with a completely glossy screen and then you'll see the reflection of your own face while you draw, or if you have this etching that also feels nice to actually draw on, you have this little bit of a grainy effect on the actual colors, which is like all the Wacom devices have this. Everyone has like, that's the way things are done the best way. Like I really recommend using the etched glass, but the colors will have a little bit of a rainbow noise on them if you look closely. And generally, I've been thinking about the idea of using like a very fine sandpaper and just, you know, sliding over this thing, because the only thing that can actually get this texture go away would be like a sandpaper, because these nibs, like all of the nibs, the felt nibs or plastic nibs, they are softer materials, so this will never go away. It will be this nice fine texture on the screen pretty much always. It will not become glossy and scratch away with time, because this is not a plastic cover, like protective film on the screen. It's the actual glass itself that has this fine grain texture to it. So yeah, in terms of like line quality and everything, I find the quality of the line very good. I don't see any wobbles or anything. I tried it with like a ruler, so that's great. As well as like if we go with pressure sensitivity, we can go with like a big size brush that has minimum diameter set to 0%, and it would look like this. Honestly, I'm not sure how to test the pressure sensitivity when it comes to the size, because really I feel like I twitch my hand a lot when I do this. I pretty much like never use pressure control over the size of the brush. I usually go with like opacity control over the size of the brush, and this feels like a very nice control right here. So yeah, the quality of the input feels very good. One thing I noticed, which is not really important, but like if you right click or like use any of the side buttons, it like twitches the cursor a little bit every time I press one of the side buttons. Sometimes it would twitch a little bit, sometimes it would twitch a lot. I'm not sure what that means, but usually if you're hovering your cursor and click one of the side buttons, it really doesn't matter if it twitches a little bit. That's just initial activation twitch, after which you have a very precise control of which color you actually want. So I don't think it will ever stand in the way of like whatever you're doing with the pen. Here's the pen performing in Blender, which is you know, much easier thing to perform in, and yeah, it works just fine with all the settings. The cursor show up properly and everything. So I think it all works very well. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be. Now let's talk about the drivers, the software. So as you can see, I have this Camvas Pro 13 connected here. I used to use these drivers with that previous drawing tablet that doesn't have a screen, and I didn't even have to install anything. It just worked fine with this model as well. So that's pretty good. In here, you can set up all the buttons the way you want. I have the bottom one to lock windows, the top one to switch screen, and the rest is just next song, volume up, play, pause, volume down, previous song. So that's to control any kind of music player I'm using. There are some settings for the working area that shows exactly which screen you're using at the moment. You can rotate it 180 degrees and use the whole thing upside down if you're left-handed. Then you would set the whole thing the other way around and have all the buttons on the right side. But then of course the USB cable would also be at the bottom right corner, which I guess is not the best thing to have. If we just mirror the whole situation, this cable would be at the bottom, which is not the best for sure. But I mean, that only matters if you actually use these buttons while you're drawing. If you don't use them while you're drawing and just have some media controls the way I do, then they can stay on the left even if you're left-handed. So yeah, that's the display settings. Then we have digital pen settings, and in here, yeah, I have a bit of a softer curve for the pressure control, so I could have a much finer control at the lowest pressure points. And yeah, you can set it up any way you want if you like. And yeah, there's also these key mappings for the pen. The bottom one, you can just literally deactivate the actual nib, so you won't be able to click with a nib. I'm not sure why that's here, but okay. And yeah, I always set up the buttons this way, so the bottom one would be just right click, and the upper one will be the middle click of the mouse. I feel like it's like 99% more useful than anything else in most software, but in some actual like drawing and painting software, Photoshop included, the middle mouse button doesn't really do anything. But what's cool in this very minimalistic but actually powerful little piece of software here is that you can select any app that you have open and add it to set different settings for it in here. So I just remapped this to be Alt left mouse button, and that gives me that eyedropper that I mentioned before. So very quickly you can just draw while holding your head with another hand or something like this and just drawing like this. A very convenient way to do it. Another way I like to use this upper button in Photoshop is where I would assign it to like spacebar with the left mouse button, so I would be able to just pan the canvas at any point. So yeah, I guess generally we cover everything we need here. These are like, there's a whole bunch of different settings. You can set up like an eraser switch that would like ask for an eraser tool in any app you use. In here you can also use switch screen and some more commands, like I'm not sure what revoke is supposed to do, or recover. Recover sounds like something that you would go back to a previous tool, maybe something like this. And clear sounds like a command to clear a layer. But yeah, honestly, I'm not 100% what these do. You can assign any keyboard shortcuts, any mouse keys with modifier keys as well, like you can do combinations, multimedia control, system use, like you can put your computer to sleep if you want, but do know that you'll have to reach for the actual button on the computer to wake it up, because the tablet doesn't send signals when the computer is off. So yeah, we have precision mode, some pan scroll, all the, you know, good old stuff, including this quick menu that looks like this. Let me just quickly show it to you. Right, so the upper button right here, it shows this thing. So your upper button here can quickly show this menu where you could choose a bunch of stuff. What's a fix? Oh, it stays around. You can fix it. That's cool. It would be cool. Oh, you can kind of move it around somehow. Oh, okay. So in the space between the buttons, this is a beautiful frosted glass render. I love it so much. But yeah, you can move it around and have this floating menu wherever you go in any piece of software. That's kind of cool. I didn't know it could stick around like this. For some reason, it almost makes it more useful. But yeah, good stuff. Pretty low latency, 60 Hz display, so I'm a bit unused to it already because my main display of the laptop is 165 frames per second, so it feels a lot more smooth and like lower latency because of that, comparing to this 60 hertz display. So I guess that's the next thing we would all like to upgrade in like future generations of these drawing displays, is to have like higher refresh rate on the screens. I think that would be really cool, because for a drawing experience, having high refresh rate is very nice when your line appears very quickly. I know that from iPad Pro, it feels really good with the high refresh rate. But yeah, nothing against having a 60 hertz drawing display. It looks and performs very nicely. So yeah, I'll mention the last thing, the little glove that comes in the box as well. It's very useful, and I like using it when I draw on anything but the iPad, because this way you get much nicer, just frictionless movement of your hand, because while the nib has a nice controllable friction with the glass, your hand may get whatever, moist and stick to the glass a little bit, and that's all gross. When you are wearing a glove like this, it really lets you slide your hand very nicely on the surface, so you can get very good, bigger shoulder drawing where you can make these smooth, beautiful lines. So yeah, I guess this covers everything I wanted to share with you guys. I really like the device. You can go ahead and follow this channel to see if I keep using this device for a while, which I'm pretty sure I will. Most of the time it will be sitting right here, replacing my iPad and actually serving as a true second display for my laptop, because this display port format of these Type-C to Type-C cables, they provide actual native, not encoded signal, so there's no load on your GPU that would have to encode each frame and send it over a simple USB signal, or like loss of quality or color. This is like, even though it's using just a Type-C cable, this is a truly like a real monitor connection where you have a non-compromise full quality of a true display without any extra load on the GPU with encoding. So that's very good. That's already making it so much of an upgrade for me from the iPad. And another thing that is a huge upgrade from the iPad is that we have a pen that works very well with the Windows system, having an actual hovering cursor where I can see where my brush is and what it looks like before I get to touch the screen, as well as we have two side buttons that are actually clicky mechanical buttons that are very much compatible with many functions like simulating right click or middle click. All of this is very useful to work with specifically the Windows system. So a wonderful upgrade. I really like how it keeps me very mobile, and even though I don't have like a one big display, I do have two smaller displays, one right next to another, which honestly gives me a lot of working area. There's a lot of pixels facing me right now, which is honestly feels like a non-compromise and very mobile setup at the same time. So yeah, if you have a laptop that you prefer working with, I definitely recommend this kind of setup. This is very nice and clean with the one little cable and like this beautiful setup. I think it's really something to go with. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about Huion Camvas Pro 13 2.5K. Don't hesitate to ask me any questions about this device, because I may have forgotten something. I'll make sure to answer all of your questions. And yeah, this is it. Looking forward to keep using this device as I work on my game and on other stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! One thing that I'm missing here is either two dedicated buttons to control the brightness of the screen, or to be able to program the brightness of the screen onto like two of these buttons. Because otherwise you have to like press and hold the power button for 3 full seconds, and then you have to only use your pen because the mouse won't see this, and then you get to actually set the brightness. And it doesn't like follow the brightness of the laptop or anything like that. I wonder if Huion could upgrade their software to add this feature to the programmable buttons here. That would be pretty cool.